6. We have Alan Shepard's return to flight of Apollo 14, launched on January 31st and returned on February 9th, 1971. During this mission, there were 4 major flares, all on February 5th. 7th, we have the first of the J-type missions, Apollo 15, which lasted between July 26 and August 7, 1971. It encountered 1 major flare on August 3rd. And finally, we have the last mission to the Moon, Apollo 17, launched on December 7th and returned on December 19, 1972. 4 major flares were recorded, 1 on December 9th, 1 on December 10th, 1 on December 15, and 1 on December 16. As demonstrated previously, Apollo 16 encountered the single largest flare ever occurred on a single Apollo mission. But curiously, the major flare of April 17, 1972 is absent in NOAA's Comprehensive Flare Index for major flares. Looking at these records, we know that out of the 1,400 flares that occurred during the Apollo missions, 30 of them were major. And we know that the radiation received by a major flare can be as high as 100 rem per hour. 100 rem divided by 60 minutes gives us a dose rate of 1.66 rem per minute. So how long were these major solar flares? Let's find out. The first of Apollo 8's 5 major flares lasted for 10 minutes. The second, 22 minutes. The third, 15 minutes. The fourth, 22 minutes. And the 5th flare lasted the full hour. This gives us a total dose of 214.14 rem for the Apollo 8 crew. The first of Apollo 10's major flares lasted approximately 18 minutes. The second, 31 minutes. The third, 49 minutes. The fourth, 44 minutes. And the 5th, 25 minutes. This gives us a total dose of 277.22 rem for the Apollo 10 crew. Curiously, the CFI for major flares only lists the time for when Apollo 11's major flare began, so I have no idea when this flare ended. But we can establish how much the following crews absorbed. The first of Apollo 12's 8 major flares lasted for 1 hour and 23 minutes. The second, 1 hour and 17 minutes. The third, 29 minutes. The fourth, 50 minutes. The 5th, 58 minutes. The 6th, 25 minutes. The 7th, 1 hour and 27 minutes. And the 8th, 1 hour and 16 minutes. This gives us a whopping 805.1 rem for Pete Conrad, Dick Gordon, and Al Bean. The first of Apollo 13's major flares lasted for 18 minutes. The last one lasted for 1 hour and 17 minutes. This puts the maximum dose for Apollo 13 at 124.5 rem. The first of Apollo 14's 4 major flares in a day lasted for 34 minutes. The second, 20 minutes. The third, 24 minutes. And the fourth, 59 minutes. Putting Apollo 14's maximum dose at 227.42 rem. Apollo 15's one and only major flare lasted for 30 minutes, giving Apollo 15 a maximum dosage of 50 rem. Again, the CFI only lists the beginning of Apollo 17's first major flare, not its beginning and end. But we do know that the second flare lasted for 1 hour and 27 minutes.
The third, 1 hour and 23 minutes. And the fourth, for 1 hour and 4 minutes.
This gives us 389.64 rem for the Apollo 17 crew.
To recap, on these maximum doses for major flares, Borman, Louvell and Anders of Apollo 8 would have absorbed 214.14 rem. Stafford, Young and Cernan of Apollo 10 would have absorbed 277.22 rem. Conrad, Gordon and Bean of Apollo 12 would have absorbed 805.1 rem. Lavelle, Swigert and Hayes of Apollo 13 would have absorbed 124.5 rem. Shepard, Rooser and Mitchell of Apollo 14 would have absorbed 227.42 rem. Scott, Warden and Irwin
Of Apollo 15
would have absorbed 50 rem. And finally, Cernan, Evans and Schmidt of Apollo 17 would have absorbed 389.64 rem.
Now try adding those numbers to the hundreds of rem absorbed from the minor flares plus their return passages through the Van Allen belts. It seems that NASA had already put their foot in their mouth even before they faked the first landing. On July 19th, 1969, astrophysicist Dr. Ernest J. Opic was interviewed by the Tucson Daily Citizen.
Spacesuits and aluminium overalls would protect astronauts from the most debilitating and deadly radiation from the Sun and elsewhere in the universe, Opic says. For long stays on the Moon, he recommends living and working in areas in bunkers or trenches covered with 6 feet of lunar soil.
This is exactly what Dr. John H. Malden was proposing. A 2-meter thick shield against solar and cosmic radiation. However, Malden's proposal was for an exposure over a few hours at the distance of the Earth, not for long stays on the Moon, as Opic suggests.
Now, I found a physicist who was once working for NASA. His name is Malden, and in his book, Prospects for Interstellar Travel, Malden states very clearly that you must have at least 2 meters of water shielding, and I add, or its mass equivalent of other matter, surrounding all life forms in space.
Malden's proposal was written thus. Solar or star flares of protons, an occasional and severe hazard on the way out of and into planetary systems, can give doses of hundreds to thousands of rem over a few hours at the distance of the Earth. Such doses are fatal and millions of times greater than the permitted dose. Death is likely after 500 rem in any short time, whereas 500 rems spread over a lifetime is not likely to cause problems, although not clearly safe. NASA has suggested astronauts might tolerate about 200 rems if received over several years. Cosmic particles are dangerous, come from all sides, and require at least 2 meters of solid shielding all around living organisms. Earth's atmosphere provides the equivalent of 10 meters of shielding. By comparison, solar flares can deliver GeV protons in the same energy range as most cosmic particles, but at much higher intensities. Increase of energy accounts for most of the increased radiation danger because GeV protons or their products will penetrate several meters of material. It's important to note that Malden is specifically talking about the GeV solar radiation that one receives within hours at Earth distance from the Sun. He even compares his proposed shield to the shielding our atmosphere provides. Earlier, on page 199 of his book, when discussing his starship's departure from Earth, Malden writes, "Cosmic particles require typically 2 meters of dense material to stop them below 10 GeV. Earth's atmosphere is equivalent to about 10 meters of water and stops virtually all energetic particles at high altitudes. But secondary particles from a high-energy proton hitting the nucleus of a gas atom often reach the ground. 10 GeV is the energy level of the cosmic radiation encountered in cislunar space. Put simply, Malden is proposing 2 meters of dense material for radiation with energies as high as those encountered on the Moon.